Welfare is corrupt always and forever. Today we're diving into a provocative argument that's been around for decades in economic circles but rarely makes it into mainstream conversation. The idea that welfare programs, and really almost every kind of earmarked government transfer, are inherently corruptible, not because of bad people gaming the system, but because of basic human behavior and simple arithmetic. The piece we're looking at was sparked by a scandal in California a few years back. Millions of dollars in cash welfare benefits, loaded onto debit cards, were being withdrawn at casinos, nightclubs, cruise ships in Hawaii, and all sorts of places that were obviously not what taxpayers had in mind when they funded aid for the poor. States started cracking down, blocking certain merchants. Then senators, including Orrin Hatch, introduced a federal bill to ban those kinds of transactions nationwide. The goal was to stop what Hatch called egregious abuses. But the core claim here is that these restrictions are largely theater. You can block an ATM inside a casino, sure, but nothing stops someone from withdrawing cash at the grocery store next door and walking straight into the casino. The money is fungible. Once it's in the recipient's hands, it's theirs to spend however they want, and it doesn't stop with cash aid. The same logic applies to every in-kind transfer program we run. Take food stamps, now called SNAP nationally or CalFresh in California. You can only use them for food, so on the surface they can't be diverted. But think about it. Most low-income households already spend a substantial portion of their income on food. Let's say 25% for illustration. If you give them $100 in food stamps, they don't suddenly start eating $100 more worth of groceries. They increase their food spending by maybe $25 because that's the marginal dollar they would have added anyway. The other $75? That's just cash they no longer have to spend on food, so it's freed up for rent, clothes, or yes, a night at the casino. Economists call this the fungibility problem. The subsidy effectively becomes cash for nearly everyone who receives it. The same thing happens with housing vouchers, heating assistance, Medicaid, any program that subsidizes something the recipient was already going to buy at least some of. The earmarked dollar replaces a dollar the recipient would have spent anyway, and the freed up dollar goes wherever the recipient chooses. It even happens with things we don't usually think of as welfare. State lotteries are sold to voters as a painless way to fund education. Politicians promise the proceeds will supplement school budgets. But once the lottery money starts flowing in, lawmakers quietly reduce the general fund allocation to schools by roughly the same amount. Net result: education gets no real boost, and the lottery dollars effectively just go into the general pot to be spent however the legislature wants. Bond measures for schools, parks, or infrastructure run into the same issue. Voters approve a bond because they're told the money will go specifically to new classrooms or roads. But governments often shift existing budget lines away from those purposes, freeing up other dollars for salaries, pensions, or entirely different priorities. And it goes international too. Humanitarian foreign aid, food, medicine, infrastructure grants often just relieves pressure on recipient governments' budgets. They can take the aid and then redirect their own money toward military buildup, luxury spending, or propping up corrupt regimes. There are heartbreaking cases where aid meant to feed starving civilians ends up indirectly funding the very forces oppressing them. So why do we get outraged about welfare debit cards at strip clubs, but barely notice these much larger, systemic diversions? The author suggests it's because the flashy scandals threaten public support for the programs. Politicians rush to patch the visible leaks to keep the illusion alive that government can precisely direct resources to the right purposes. Meanwhile, the deeper, structural diversions, the ones baked into the design of every earmarked program, go unchallenged. The implication is uncomfortable. If we really want to help people without all this leakage and bureaucracy, maybe we should just give them cash and trust them to make their own decisions. Or accept that any attempt to micromanage how aid is spent is doomed to substantial failure. That's the argument in its raw form. It's not saying poor people are irresponsible or that aid is worthless. It's saying the mechanisms we use to control spending are far less effective than we like to believe, and the evidence is hiding in plain sight across virtually every government transfer program we've ever created.